There's no justice in the world, not unless we make it.
Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Off.
What? I don't know what just happened.
That's with respect in Dothraki. I just looked it up.
Okay, I was like, what the fuck are you doing over there? Just yelling guttural noises at me. I'm like, okay. I can see this is going to be a good episode already.
Or I could have said Achumar Chomika, which is respect to those who are respectful.
I think I probably, hindsight's 20/20 and all, but I feel like maybe I could have pulled Dothraki out of that full phrase instead of just the grunt.
Off.
Yeah. I was
So
a little bit caught off guard there.
Greetings to the podcast land. To the listeners.
Greetings, respect. I guess is a respect to the podcast land. Maybe that's what we're looking for. Well, I will say welcome everyone to bonus episode number 16, our latest in our continuing series on Game of Thrones. The rewatch continues. We're talking season 5 on bonus episode number 16. We're making headway. Of course, it's probably worth mentioning that season 8, the final season, has actually started airing as of us recording this episode. So the end is approaching very, very quickly. Of course, we are going to compartmentalize this episode, keep it separate, certainly from any of the new season. That's for sure. That will not come up at all. But we're also going to try to keep it pretty separate from season 6 and 7 as well, just so if anyone's following along with the rewatch, they're not going to be pissed at us for spoiling some major things that happen later down the line. We're going to talk about season 5. It's what we're here to do. Season 5 of Game of Thrones. So I want to say just some notes about Patreon and how everything works in case anyone's not up to speed on this. Mostly for those of you, exclusively for those of you listening to this on a regular feed sometime down the line. These episodes go up as a timed exclusive bonus episode on our Patreon. So $2 a month will get you access to our Patreon, which includes, again, that timed exclusive access to these bonus episodes pretty much within a day after we record them, as well as early access to all of our regular episodes. So, timeline-wise, obviously we have to watch Season 6, we have to watch Season 7, record episodes on those, and then we'll do an episode on Season 8 once everything's wrapped up with that in just over a month's time. And, if you want to stay on top of things, the best way to do that is to support us on Patreon. That way, you can kind of watch it, again at the same pace as we're going through. Or maybe you're done with rewatch. Maybe you sped it up a little bit so you could be totally ready to go by the time season 8 started airing. Unfortunately, that was not a feasible possibility for myself. I guarantee Andrew could have done it. No questions asked. But I've been trying to maintain a little bit of a school and personal life balance. And, I think I've done a pretty admirable job of it so far. I mean, we've watched a lot of Game of Thrones, and, we're here to talk about it. We've talked a lot about it, and we're going to talk some more about it. So on that note, Game of Thrones Season 5. I think it's time for us to get into it. It was adapted from actually a couple books in the Song of Ice and Fire series, A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, kind of two books that basically take place at the same point in the timeline, follow different point of view characters. So this joins a lot of those events, brings them kind of together so that the timeline isn't totally displaced. Well, of course, there is certainly a major character that is completely absent from this season, which we'll talk about. And there's also, of course, we're getting into the point in the series where the divergences from the source material are getting more and more explicit, whether that's just because it's the showrunners doing their own thing, consolidating characters, consolidating plot lines, making up new plot lines, bringing in material from future books that will probably never get written and released, i.e. The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring. Mostly The Winds of Winter. I think there's one big event I think that happens in this that apparently they were told was going to happen. They were told, the showrunners were told it was going to happen by George R.R. Martin himself, the man responsible for, of course, this great series. It aired April to June of 2015. The showrunners that I just talked about are David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, continuing in their roles from season 1. They are a mainstay throughout all of the series, and that will hold true through the final season, which is very cool. Very cool. Lots of continuity there, which makes things exciting. And in a show like Game of Thrones, I think continuity is really key. They've obviously recast actors here and there, and change designs and stuff here and there, but for the most part, I think they have a pretty strict adherence to, making sure that the show feels like it hasn't radically changed from one year to another. Well, so let's talk the very expansive cast in this. Peter Dinklage headlining, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Lena Headey, Emilia Clarke, Kit Harington, Aidan Gillen, Natalie Dormer, Stephen Delane, Liam Cunningham, Carice Van Houten, Indira Varma, Alfie Allen, Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, John Bradley, Christopher Hivju, Hannah Murray, Conleth Hill, Gwendolyn Christie, Jerome Flynn, Michiel Hausman, Natalie Emmanuel, Dean Charles Chapman, Tom Vlachia, Michael McElhatton, and Yvonne Dreon, and with Ian Glenn. Those of you that have had a chance to listen to our previous episodes on Game of Thrones know what's coming. You know what's coming. It's a very long and winding, very extensive state of the realm.
It just gets longer. Oh my God.
I took a look at this before because I was just like, oh, fuck me. This is really is getting longer, and not even just a few sentences getting tacked on. It's like they just summarized the first 5 seasons in the first few paragraphs, first 4 seasons, I guess, technically speaking. So I'm going to do my best to keep it. I didn't totally edit it down. I kind of just looked and I was like, okay, there's a lot here, but we're going to get through it one way or another. So we'll see how it goes.
Why don't you make it interesting and read it in a voice, dude?
I could. Would you like me to read it with my Peter Baelish voice?
No, I don't necessarily vote Peter Baelish. Maybe you could read it.
Westeros is on the brink of collapse.
Yeah, I don't think I could sustain a voice for the amount of material that's here. I would get about 3 sentences and I'd be like, okay, we're done with that. I'd like to actually be able to speak for the rest of the night.
Fair enough. All right.
So let's get into it. We're going to dive right in. The War of the Five Kings is entering a new and more chaotic phase as Westeros is on the brink of collapse, and many are seizing what they can while the realm implodes like a corpse making a feast for crows.
Ooh.
Very clever, very clever. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Game of Thrones wiki, of course, the writers of this, full credit to them. So the end of season 4 has shifted the landscape in a very radical way. Tywin Lannister is dead, shot on the privy by his long-abused dwarf son Tyrion. The crazed boy king Joffrey Baratheon has also been killed after being poisoned at his own wedding, and he's been succeeded by his younger brother, Tommen. And Cersei Lannister, Tommen's mother, succeeds her father as the head of House Lannister and takes over as the Queen Regent, as Tommen has yet to come of age. This describes her as neither a master strategist nor a skilled diplomat, unlike her father and brother. But she faces some mounting crises that would have strained even their abilities, and so it leaves her in a position to tackle them to the best of her ability. House Lannister has largely managed to crush House Stark, but in many ways it was a Pyrrhic victory, quote unquote. The Iron Throne was already in massive debt to foreign banks, and now the immense wartime spending by the Lannisters has only increased the crown's debts to crippling levels. So they must now attempt to placate the Iron Bank of Braavos, the largest of the foreign banks, and the one which the crown owes the most of its huge debts to. Much of the land is war-torn. The Riverlands has been reduced to a burned-out husk. Winter is fast approaching, but instead of stockpiling harvests for years, the Great Lords have been busy destroying this great region. And there's been some pushback to what's been happening in the realm, and that pushback is slowly but surely making its way to the capital as of the outset of Season 5. There's an ongoing rivalry between the Lannisters and the Tyrells, specifically between Cersei and Marjorie Tyrell. Their alliance was only secured at Blackwater to basically have the Lannisters retain power at that point, but now that Tywin is dead and Marjorie is presumed to be King Tommen's queen, as she would have been queen with Joffrey previously, the Tyrells are no longer pretending to be polite to the Lannisters, but openly demanding greater concessions and key positions of power. So we'll see what happens with that. We will see. Queen Regent Cersei, in the absence of the political acumen of Tywin or Tyrion, struggles to address the major challenges that face the realm. The King's Small Council has been gutted, with Tywin dead, Peter Baelish leaving for the Eyrie, and both Tyrion and the Master of Whispers, Varys, fleeing King's Landing to perhaps sail across the Narrow Sea. Somewhere, maybe. Maybe we'll go somewhere, I don't know. But outside of these regions, there are some things happening elsewhere. The Vale has their armies and resources intact, with Peter Baelish basically heading up the Vale. Dorne, ruled by House Martell, seems to be relatively unscathed, although they lost Prince Oberyn as of the end of Season 4. And so we come to Littlefinger, who we describe as the secret architect of the conflict, responsible for poisoning the hand of the king, Jon Arryn, all the way back prior to the events of Season 1. Engineered the betrayal of Ned Stark, assisted Olenna Tyrell in assassinating King Joffrey, and he has now murdered Lysa Arryn only days after wedding her, and seized power over the Vale. And that is where he remains, alongside his niece, his quote-unquote niece, Sansa Stark, who he is currently watching over and guiding her through the political muck that is the world of Westeros. The people of Dorne demand vengeance for the death of Prince Oberyn, I just mentioned, who died in a trial by combat at the hands of Sir Gregor Clegane. Leading the call to enter the war are Oberyn's paramour, Ellaria Sand, and the eldest of his 8 daughters, Obara, Nymeria, and Tyene. But Doran Martell, the Prince of Dorne and Oberyn's older brother, continues to urge restraint. Further complicating the matter is that early in the war, the Lannisters bribed the Martells into staying neutral by offering a marriage alliance, sending Cersei's daughter Myrcella to Dorne to betroth her to Doran's son Trystane, where she currently is. She currently is in Dorne. However, the most dire situation in Westeros is in the north. It's at the Wall. The massive assault against Castle Black by Mance Rayder's Wildling army was defeated with the surprise arrival of Stannis Baratheon, the one true king, and his remaining forces. Maybe he's the one true king. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Stannis withdrew from his island stronghold Dragonstone to reach the Wall by sea to defend the realm of which he feels he is the only rightful king. Oh, there, it came back up. With his home territories in the Stormlands overrun, Stannis needs to win the allegiance of the North to rally them again as a springboard against Lannister rule, as well as the support of Jon Snow, who must walk a political tightrope between Stannis and his vows, since the Night's Watch has sworn to strict political neutrality. Though the battle against the Wildlings is all but over, the Night's Watch faces dire conditions, with almost all of the Watch's top officers either killed or missing, the organization has now been left leaderless during this time of crisis, and they must navigate a contentious election for a new Lord Commander. And, of course, this is all bullshit, because we know that the White Walkers and the Army of the Dead are bearing down on the Wall itself, intent on spilling over it to destroy the lands of men beyond who remain ignorant of the long-forgotten but all-too-real danger. The main armies of the northern houses were slaughtered at the Red Wedding, the tail end of Season 3. The large main army of House Bolton has returned to the north now, after betraying the Starks and seizing power for themselves at that point. Roose Bolton, head of the Bolton household, Warden of the North. His son Ramsay Bolton, newly legitimized, is now the new Lord of Winterfell under his father. And right now they're free to commit atrocities throughout the North, such as flaying men alive, hunting and killing young women for sport. All manner of good things. But the struggle for the North is not over yet. Ironborn invaders are still abound under Balon Greyjoy, who has crowned himself the King of the Iron Islands. Although Theon, Balon's only living son, has been brutally flayed, tortured, and psychologically broken by Ramsay himself, and reduced to a personal slave that goes by the name of Reek. Now, outside of boring old Westeros, I mean, who cares about them? Tyrion Lannister has fled after murdering his father across the narrow sea to the free cities with his future intentions unknown, perhaps even to himself. Accompanied by Varys, he arrives in the east, unaware that the Master of Whisperers might have secrets yet to reveal. And also, who someone has fled across the narrow sea, and that would be Arya Stark. Who cashed in the favor that she received for saving the life of one of the mysterious guild of assassins in Braavos known as the Faceless Men. Daenerys Targaryen's hold over Meereen has become precarious, as ruling the city is becoming much more difficult than conquering it was. Violence is rampant between former slaves and former slave masters. Revenge attacks are on the rise. Resurgent slavers at Yonkai are rallying all those who oppose her. Her 3 dragons have become uncontrollable, and she cannot rely on them to defeat her enemies on the battlefield anymore. And she's still distraught over recent revelations concerning one Jorah Mormont, Khaleesi, who she has exiled from the city as punishment. With her, she has the remaining advisors of Sir Barristan Selmy, Missandei, and the sellsword Daario Naharis to attempt to help her reign stay together, stay intact. Unbeknownst to Daenerys, word has finally spread to Westeros that the Targaryen heir has hatched 3 live dragons. And so now these several different factions in Westeros, now possessing this knowledge, are pondering how Daenerys and her dragons are going to factor into this multifaceted civil war that is now tearing the 7 kingdoms apart. And so, envoys begin to head east to court Daenerys' allegiance, but those who try to dance with dragons run the risk of being burned. I like that. They had symmetry there. They had Feast for Crows in the beginning, and then they had Dance with Dragons at the end. Very good. I tried to spice it up a little bit, so I don't know if that was more or less dry, but I was doing that on the fly, so I have no idea how that worked. Anyway, it's now done. It's on the record now, so it ain't changing, and I ain't going back to re-record any of that shit. So let's talk about Game of Thrones Season 5. We'll do a little bit non-spoilers, and then we'll jump into full spoilers in just a little while. So Season 5, how does it stack up with the rest, my friend?
I think this is it's definitely a much slower season.
Concur. I agree.
It was, it's never bad. It's never a bad show. But it's definitely,
it's got moments of, I would say, verging on badness here and there. Fleeting moments, I would say, but we'll talk about it in spoilers.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, I think it's still an incredibly well-made show. It's still interesting, but it is definitely dragging in certain spots. And I don't think it's dragging. I don't think it's dragging because of it's just dragging because of pacing and the way they chose to go about things. I think it kind of lost. I don't know where the shortcomings are.
I think what it is that season 3 and 4, based out of A Storm of Swords, so much shit went down, and even by the end of season 4, so much shit went down that like the whole landscape of Westeros has just shifted in this radical way, and so now it's really just everyone almost picking up the pieces at this point, and it's so nothing really. I mean, it's kind of moving, different pieces across the board, but it doesn't quite reach it
never feels quite as
a boiling point, a crisis point. Yeah, like season 4 in particular was like, shit, Joffrey just got, poisoned at his own wedding like 2 or 3 episodes in or something like that. And then, even the Watchers on the Wall, the attack on Castle Black, Tywin dies. I mean, power
huge.
Void, big power void. And so it's kind of just like, what happens now?
And that's so just it. It should feel a lot more frantic, I think, than what it is. because it does.
That's true.
It never
Yeah.
really. It never feels like. Don't get me wrong. There's a power vacuum, and there people are scrambling, but it doesn't feel like anybody's scrambling. There's no sense of.
It's not a lot of urgency to what.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, you do feel a shifting dynamic. I mean, you really do feel the absence of those characters that are no longer with us.
And you see
some we're glad to not have with us, but
and you see that the I'm losing my words. The consequences of previous actions, like there's one particular instance that I think is huge, and it lasts a couple of seasons, I think. But Cersei makes some poor decisions, and that she ends up feeling the consequences of strictly because she's grappling for power. And I think she searches for power by making the wrong alliances. And you certainly, like I said, it's a couple season arc there, but it I don't know. It just feels, it's just a lot slower.
it is. I mean, I would say for probably the first 5 or 6 episodes, there's a lot of nothing. And for what I think I do agree with you now that I kind of have a little bit time to reconcile it. It does feel like there should be more urgency. Like there are things that could be happening that seem like they should have a lot of momentum to them, but they're just kind of there. Things just kind of happen, at this leisurely pace, and it's kind of. I feel like it. Again, I would agree. Overall, I don't think it's ever bad. It approaches. I think it comes close a couple times. One time in particular, we'll get there, obviously. But it doesn't seem to have a real point to it. It's not like it doesn't. I mean, I said it already. There's just no sense of urgency to it. It's really just content to just kind of
coast.
Yeah, really, it does kind of feel a little bit like coasting. Like I think by probably the last 3 episodes of the season, things finally start, kicking into gear. And interesting things happen to characters. Characters are brought low. Characters maybe that we've never seen brought low in this manner, and so that creates interesting things that maybe we'll pick up in a season 6 episode. But a lot of that, it's almost a little too late for this season to kind of recover. By the time things actually do start to move, And again, it's not bad, but it's just a lot of just kind of like. This really, I mean, it's crazy because it's like, I mean, it's actually, I guess I would say from the books, from what I know, A Feast for Crows, I think is pretty widely regarded as the slowest in the series, and it's kind of, it's like Storm of Swords is just this pinnacle, like this absolute madness that's gone down, by the conclusion of that novel, and then Feast for Crows is like. I mean, it's called A Feast for Crows. That kind of tells you what it is.
Right.
But A Dance with Dragons, I think, brings a little bit of the excitement, but I think in the way that Martin ended up chopping parts of that story and theoretically moving it to the eventual Winds of Winter novel that may or may not get released at this point. There's more things that are exciting in there, but it's really, honestly, it's just sowing seeds. Like seasons, I guess books 4 and 5 and season 5 is really about planting seeds, and sometimes they're interesting ideas, but it takes its sweet ass time getting to those things. And so as I think in the way that I felt about season 2, I think you liked season 2 more than I did. Overall, season 2 was a lot of like putting things into place so that when season 3 and 4 happened, it was fucking wild.
It's fucking dominoes. Right.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of the same thing as like. Well,
it's kind
all
of
the dominoes
same point, but
the dominoes have fallen, so it's kind of like they got to stand them back up. And so, we see some things fall a little bit towards the end, but we don't know exactly what that means. And so I think that it pushes that out to future seasons to explore that with any sort of real depth here. And I honestly think that probably one of the most striking things, in my opinion, about this season is I think it lacks the spark, that the other ones have. Like it doesn't, just doesn't feel as tight. It's not as tight, and it seems like for as many cool ideas seemingly exist within the season. If I looked at it in a vacuum, I'm like, oh, they're going to this place and doing that. Oh, that sounds fucking awesome. Or
Right.
they're like, oh, these characters are doing that together and they're going to do that. Oh, that sounds. There's a lot of stuff that on like the written page sounds excellent, but it's kind of just nothing.
Right.
It's kind of just we got to fill screen time. We've got 10 episodes to fill, and we've got 7 episodes before got 7 episodes of fuck all happening before we finally get to what we want to do. It really honestly kind of feels like they knew the end point, and then everything in the middle was just kind of like, I mean, just we'll just bide our time, a little bit. So I feel like it squanders what could have been some interesting concepts. Maybe this might have been the second time I've seen it. I don't know if I've seen season 5 multiple times. This might have been like my first proper rewatch of the season. I honestly don't recall. But I think I'm going to be curious to watch season 6 and 7 to see, because I feel like I know season 7's obviously pretty recent in memory, and I know that's a short, it's a truncated season. I know that it definitely has lots of actiony stuff and, lots of things moving around, lots of moving pieces. And I want to say season 6 does as well. So that's my kind of thinking, is that season 5 suffers as a result of setting things up, but at the same time, it does put you in a position, it's not like you're going to write this show off after season 5, because I think it does leave you in an interesting spot. If nothing else, it's not all that interesting to get to that point, I think, is where I'd say it kind of fails for me as a season overall. It doesn't have that Tywin Arya, it doesn't have that Brienne Jaime, it doesn't have Arya and the Hound. It doesn't have something like that where you're just what should be interesting character pairings just don't have that sort of oomph to them in the way that some of those dynamics did. And I don't know, it's fine, I guess.
It's totally fine. There's some cool stuff that happens.
It's a come down, certainly, from the past couple seasons, which I think both of us, I think we had alternate order, but I think both of us agreed that seasons 3 and 4 were the 2 best.
Yeah, I would agree.
Of the first 4. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that. With season 5, at the same time, if you put it into the scheme of things, Game of Thrones, you think of it as an 8-season arc, if you will.
Sure.
It stands to reason that you have ebbs and flows in terms of pacing, in terms of storylines, in terms of characterization,
Sure.
in terms of where things go.
That's very
and
fair.
so I think if you put it into that sphere, like I think you have to put it in that sphere because it's not airing live anymore. Well, it is, but this season's not. You know what I mean? Like I think you watch this week to week and you're kind of just like, all right, that was Game of Thrones. I like being in the room with these characters and seeing what they're up to, but not a whole lot of forward momentum. But at the same time, you take a step back and you're like, okay, this puts this character in this position, or this takes this character off the map entirely, maybe by the end of the season, or it puts this character in a very precarious spot. What's going to happen now? So I think that, again, as very much as a table setting kind of thing, I think you can look at it as something that works, but unfortunately that doesn't do much to resolve the lack of interesting things that happen, scene to scene sometimes. So
that's it. I mean, you have to look at it from the macro. You got to look at it from way back, because it does reset the dominoes in a way that's interesting, but I think they could have done a tighter job of doing it. That's my opinion.
And I don't know that it needed to be like a shorter season, although it probably could have benefited from that. I don't know if you bring forward some events from season 6 in to make it a little bit more something. Like you could probably condense, honestly, probably the first 6 episodes or so into probably 3 or 4 and get away with it. I think
so. Just a couple more time hops and this and that, and it would have been fine.
And I'm not sure that.
Some of the characters.
I don't know how that works for the pacing on the back end, but
some of the characters need more just more exposition. I think there's a lot of characters going on radically different adventures and stuff, which is cool, and those stories are worth fleshing out.
And what's interesting now, because now that I think about it, is like they did very deliberately excise again a certain character
which
his
could
entire storyline is not present in the season. It's kind of just like, now that I think about it, I'm like, they totally could have condensed a lot of stuff and just put that back in, and maybe that would have filled the time, I think, in a much more exciting way. I guess it's one of those things they probably didn't want to advance that storyline too much. And I think that was, again, I think that was a lot of the concern with the season, is like, well, we don't want to go too far with it because we know that we have at least a few more seasons waiting on the back end of this. So if we burn through material too quickly, what's left over, I guess?
I think we can get more into it in spoilers, but I think you could have. There's a lot of, I think, Game of Thrones lore that it's kind of glossed over in the series that is really fleshed out in the books, and I think that the character that was excised from the season you could have taken that opportunity to really flesh out all sorts of lore in a really meaningful, tactful way. That would have made future seasons really freaking interesting.
It's interesting because they I think, I might be wrong. I know we've seen visions and stuff like that in previous seasons, but I believe this is the first use of a proper flashback in the entire series to this point, which is the very opening sequence of this season, where we see a young version of a certain character. We could talk about that in spoilers if you don't recall. But I just feel like I'm kind of just tying that into your point of like, it's like they did make a point to almost visit the past and, in an attempt to inform what happens in the future. And it's like, you could have absolutely done that with what you're suggesting, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't have to go into like, you don't have to go into bloodlines. You don't have to go in with anything. You could have, like I said, there's a ton of freaking lore that's glossed over. You could have filled that time with all sorts of stuff, as well as expanding on that character's, abilities and stuff. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but I mean, give it...
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean...
We'll just dive in.
Oh, I say I don't know there's a whole lot else to say and non-spoilers. I think we've been kind of talking in circles by doing spoilers without actually doing spoilers. So yes, it's a season. It's definitely a season of Game of Thrones. It's maybe not as good as some of the others, maybe not, but it's still Game of Thrones at its core. It's still these characters that you enjoy watching. It's not such, I think, a massive drop off the cliff that it ever makes you think, what the fuck happened here? It's just kind of like, it's a little bit disappointing, I think, coming off of that rousing success that both seasons 3 and 4 were. So I think that's where we stand with season 5.
That's right.
So full spoilers for Game of Thrones season 5. We're talking about Bran. I mean, obviously, we're talking about Bran, who is MIA for this entire season, along with his compatriots, with Mira, Hodor.
Because to this point, what do we go on? What do we have? We have Jojen's expertise, which he's just a kid that figured the shit out on his own as well, right?
Well, Jojen's dead as fuck right now.
Jojen's dead as fuck, right? But up until this point, his only teacher has been Jojen,
right? And now he's literally
with the master of all,
with the three-eyed raven. He's with this fucking tree man. What's going on there? We don't know what's going on there, but we know that there's been, like we know Jojen was a green seer. Is that what he was?
I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And and so like he could see the future. He could he even knew that like he was gonna die like when he was taking Bran north and shit. So you're like that there's like some freaky deaky shit happening, and that is an avenue that is gonna. I mean, Bran's gonna fly. What does that mean? What does that mean?
And we don't even need to know what that means. If you want to save that for later, that's fine. What about Children of the Forest? What about the First Men? What about the history of the realm? What about all sorts of stuff?
And I think you have to. I think you have to at least somewhat explain why it is that Bran, or what the nature of that is. But you could absolutely you could take that opportunity to dive into the mythos in that way. And then Bran himself is like, season 6 rolls around, is like, now that I know all these things, I can go do my own thing now. You could certainly do it, obviously in a less clumsy way than that, but I think that's kind of your point, is that even if it's not a lot of forward momentum on his part, on the character of Bran's part, at least we see him, at least he's not absent for an entire season, and it takes the opportunity to go back and like fill in maybe some gaps in the lore that like,
you could parallel.
That sows the seeds for future seasons as well.
You could parallel Arya with Bran. Arya and Bran could be parallels of each other. You have Arya trying to get in and like learn the ways of the Faceless Men, which is completely foreign, and then you can have Bran learning like the workings of magic and warging and all that shit. You know, could have totally easily you could have totally done that, and it would have made the first 6 episodes that much more interesting. You know,
I think so too. Yeah, I think that's a good call. You know, and it's a way that, you know, leaves you still with 10 episodes of content, and I think it gives you an opportunity to streamline maybe what feels overly padded out, because there's stuff that feels overly padded out in this season, and certainly in the early goings. Like I said, I think it hits its stride towards the end of the season when shit actually does start happening. You know, but it's pretty dry for a lot of it, and that's unfortunate. So yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. I mean, it's too late now. We ain't the showrunners. You ain't the showrunner on this, but
DB, add us to the payroll. Fly me and Colton. Well, I guess we already wrote it.
We're just armchair quarterbacking a little bit, but you know,
you want to fly us in for that prequel series you're working on for HBO? Fly us up.
The Long Night, or whatever it's called. Yeah,
we'll do it. We'll do it.
Better get some fucking lore on that. Fill in some gaps. I think we're going to do the same thing we've done, I think, on the past couple episodes. We're going to jump around largely by location and the associated characters with those locations, and talk about maybe the sometimes meandering plots of these characters, maybe sometimes the not so meandering plots of these characters, and their journeys that they go throughout the season, and the resolution, perhaps final resolution for some of these characters. Very sad, very sad. So I think I think maybe where I'd like to go next anyway. You may disagree. I think we should venture over to the Wall, associated activities with the Wall, which includes the likes of Hardhome. You know, the mission that Jon Snow mounts to the north to bring some wildlings down south of the Wall to save them from their impending doom at the hands of the White Walkers and such. So there's a lot of characters, a lot of things happening at the Wall. Stannis is hanging out there and stuff for most of the season. So we can kind of talk about everything that happens throughout the season over there. Which I will say, I think in terms of things that work about season 5, this is absolutely one of the places that it does.
Well, sure.
I think overall, I think I would say probably the most happens here. I mean, King's Landing's always a source of entertainment for one reason or another. There's always something happening down at King's Landing, but you know, the Wall is one of our settings featuring, I think, generally speaking, our favorite characters. It's interesting to see kind of somewhat worlds colliding here with Jon, you know, and the Night's Watch crew with Stannis and his associated crew with Davos and Melisandre and such. So. Where would you like to begin with some of these characters? You want to talk about Jon Snow up at the top? Do you want to get the big one out of the way?
Jon Snow gets fucked.
Jon Snow does get fucked. That's true.
Jon Snow's the only one that I can like actively combat a fucking White Walker. I mean, he's straight up goes toe-to-toe with a White Walker, dude. Gets thrown across the building. They're super strong, this and that. And he cuts that motherfucker in half. And he shatters. And little old shitty Ollie shoves a knife in his heart.
Yeah, I think...
fucking Ollie.
I mean, this is Game of Thrones at its core. You know, it's like...
Yeah.
Jon Snow, one of the few people in this entire fucking realm that understands the threat at hand.
The stakes.
And you have a bunch of cunts at the Wall, you know, so concerned with their petty squabbling and their hard-ons for hating the wildlings.
Some fucking racist assholes.
They can't reconcile the fact that, hey, maybe these are a change in times and things need to be done that we're not happy with, we're not particularly comfortable with. Certainly things that are break from tradition and stuff like that, but they seemingly do not have any sort of recognition for the concept of the greater good. And
you know,
it's one of those things that, well, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it would be really interesting to explore the history of Westeros through Bran to find out if really what he is doing is that radical. You know what I'm saying? Because I know they don't talk about it. They say you're the only person to let wildlings south of the Wall. But like Jon says, they're just fucking people that happen to be on the north side of the Wall when the Wall was built. You know what I mean? So I mean, I would find that very interesting. It very well could be the case, but who's to say? You know? But yeah, he really gets the short end of the stick there. Like you said, it is.
He does. Yeah, I mean, for someone that goes through the entire season on a pretty upward trajectory, and obviously, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, he gets elected by a single vote. That's a pretty momentous thing to happen for Jon Snow. And then he mounts. One of his first things that he does when he's Lord Commander is to go on this quest to save the wildlings and bring them south of the Wall at Hardhome, and he runs into a fucking gauntlet there with the White Walkers, the Army of the Dead. It's a full on fucking battle that unfolds there, and even before the battle unfolds, it's him trying to negotiate, and he's there's it works both ways. Obviously, the wildlings have a lot of distrust for
Sure.
the Night's Watch as a result of their history together, but it's really him trying to reconcile their differences and kind of continue Mance's message, Mance Rayder's message of, hey, survival is kind of what's key here. It's not about I hate you, you hate me. Like you can continue to hate me and I can continue to hate you south of the Wall, but at least least you'll be safe. And when the time comes, we can fight together, and if we defeat this fight, then we can go back to hating each other and everything will be just as well.
It doesn't
right.
matter.
Like that's
right.
That's not what's at stake here. So Jon goes through a fucking hell of an arc, I think, through season 5, and his reward is getting stabbed multiple times by his brothers,
Yeah.
his sworn brothers, and the way that fucking the previous Lord Commander got absolutely fucked. At Craster's Keep, it's kind of the same thing, and it's for different, somewhat different reasons. I mean, that was somewhat desperation out of starvation and just a really shitty circumstance. Doesn't justify it, but it's
he got
certainly
stabbed
a different
in his
circumstance.
Own home. Yeah, mutiny in his own home.
And this is like a very deliberate action done by these people that have had it out for most of them had it out for Jon for the longest time, like Alistair Thorne, but Ollie witnessed his family get slaughtered by the wildlings, and when Jon was trying to break bread with him, he gets radicalized by what certainly I think the way others feel about Jon, enough for him to drive a knife through his heart, in the way that the others did, and for the Watch or whatever. And man, the way they do it, it's like, oh,
we found your uncle.
If we found Benjen, he's back, or he knows something about, one of the wildling knows something about Benjen. It's like, that's just the fucking
under the sign
coolest
traitor.
stroke of them all.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How does anybody do that to anybody? I couldn't do that to anybody.
So it's pretty fucked for Jon Snow.
Yeah, but you do have that badass battle, and I think this is the first explicit... No, maybe not the first explicit. Maybe it is, though. It's the first explicit view of the Night King raising the...
I think so. I
see him and the generals on top of the mountain, and then they come...
To see him wielding this power, it's certainly, I think, probably the biggest holy shit moment, certainly for an audience, and certainly for any of the characters present, of just like, oh no, yeah, we're right. Like, I don't give a fuck, if you're, a wildling or not. Like, that shit out there is not okay. And as it turns out, I mean, even though they do manage to rescue, however many people they do, there's a lot of fucking people that die at Hardhome.
Oh, yeah.
And the fucking Night King raises his hands, and his army's probably doubled in size or whatever. And it's just like, how do you stop that? Like, you do everything in your power, but I'm not. How do you do it?
And he just walks out on the fucking pier or whatever. He walks out on that beach and he just stares at Jon and fucking raises.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking crazy.
Dude,
oh,
Hardhome, that whole sequence, it's not quite, Blackwater, Watcher than the Wall. It does bounce around to a few different locales, but then it kind of settles into Hardhome for like the last 30-ish minutes of the episode.
Yeah.
And it's just fucking hard hitting as hell. It's so badass. And I think they do a lot with the characterization in that moment. Like, it's a really great opportunity for Jon to sell his ability to lead, to be, a force for change, a force for good, a force against the White Walkers and whatever tyranny that awaits with their, arrival. And so we see that. We see characters, kind of introduced. Like, they introduce the wildling chieftain, Carsey, who's like the first time we ever see this character. and she's like a total badass, in like 30 minutes I'm like sold on this fucking character, and then of course she dies by the end of it. And,
with all the kids, right? The kids eat her
with
up.
The kids, yeah. It's like you see that like even in this 30 minutes of like brief characterization, you see that these are fucking people. These are people that care about their own. They care about survival. They care. They want to live. Everyone wants to live, of course. You know what I mean? Like that's the one thing that we cling to.
What happened to that giant?
Life itself.
Giant's running towards the boats, and he doubles down in that Arctic water. And
he's there. He makes it. We see him pass through the gates. And
how
he just walked along the bottom for a bit. He's fine. Yeah. He's a giant. He's got giant's blood. I assume maybe the giant's blood. They have a little bit of a different internal operating temperature, so he can sustain some Arctic
waters.
Level cold waters for a bit of time, or maybe
surely maybe giants can swim, surely, right?
I don't see why they couldn't. Just kind of be lumbering a little bit, but I can see it. I feel like they should be able to. Yeah.
All right. Samwell is sent south of the wall to be a maester.
Well, he will be. He's very much at the wall the entirety of season 5. But
that was announced, right? Like I didn't hop in front of myself.
No, yeah. I mean, that was kind of the tail end. Is basically, But well, I mean, and in some ways, maybe that's what spurns the rest of his brothers to take action against Jon Snow, is the fact that he's kind of sending his. Well, I think there's a comment of like all your friends are disappearing or something like that.
He makes that.
I think it might have been to Sam, but it's kind of true for both. Is that obviously. There's no love lost between certain characters like Sam and Alliser, Jon and Alliser, and some other characters in there. So it's kind of like once Jon, I think Jon knows. He's like, if I let Sam go down to the Citadel, it's like, who do I have left up here? I've got Ed. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And that's probably not enough to work out. And as it turns out, well, he gets killed. So that obviously did not work out very well for him. As you might expect.
Janos Slynt gets called a bitch and gets sent over to the...
Janos Slynt says, he gets called out on the shit, and he says, all right, you want to disobey me, motherfucker? I'll disobey your head off your fucking body, motherfucker, is what he says. So that was cathartic. That was certainly a cathartic moment to see fucking Janos Slynt. There's certain characters, we talk about it all the time, like, they're just a bunch of shits in Game of Thrones, and like, Janos Slynt was definitely a shit that was, he was ready for the execution block, primed for it, in fact, and did not disappoint. But Sam, we see Sam protecting Gilly. There's the two Night's Watch members that go to Gilly, and then Sam kind of defends her
as best he can.
And he does get the shit beaten out of him, but he gets back up, and of course Ghost comes in and saves the day.
And he gets laid.
Good boy. And he gets laid. Yeah, a little, good for Sam. Sloppy writing, I feel like, right after getting almost raped, I feel like that's probably, I don't know. I mean, it seems the juxtaposition there's a little awkward. I felt like they probably could have.
She's if you want
a couple episodes back, but at the same time, she is probably. She's a character that spent her whole life with Craster, so her sense of
right,
kind of what's right and wrong is what's considered, I guess.
That's not even right and wrong. It's the fact that he stood up for is probably more. I don't know.
It's a nice intimate moment between them. I think it's just one of those things. It's just like, in the scheme of things at that particular moment, I'm not sure that was the right way to go about achieving that moment. I just felt like it's one of those things. It's like, I'll bring it up again, but the whole thing about Jaime and Cersei at Joffrey's grave, and it's just like, oh, it's totally consensual. I'm like, no, it's not. I just feel like the intent there might be well intentioned, but I feel like sometimes the execution is off here and there, and there's certainly something else that happens to another character that I find extremely questionable in terms of the writing motivations.
Let's talk about it. Who are we talking about?
Well, it's not anywhere in the wall, so we'll get there later.
I tell you what's fucking questionable is Shireen.
Well, the dominoes certainly fall for Stannis Baratheon,
dude,
in this season, because things quickly goes south for him when he makes the decision to burn his daughter alive. And for Stannis has been getting away with the blood magic for seasons now, and like even if he was kind of like in season 2 when he's introduced, and I'm like, he probably does legitimately have the best claim to the throne. But then, like, the way he goes about things, the shadow baby to kill Renly, and you're just like, oh, he's probably not really a good bloke. Like, he's committed to the cause, and I guess respect or whatever for that, but he does a lot of morally questionable things. And at some point, it evolves past being just morally questionable and into just outright bad.
He loses the
it's
support
just like,
of half of his army.
Just outright evil, and the army recognizes that. I'm like,
can't follow him anymore.
So my king is going to burn his daughter alive. What does that mean for me? It's just like, fuck this. I'm out of here. And
right.
Like, you could totally understand why, like, the sellswords are just like, yeah, fuck this noise. It ain't worth that much gold or whatever. But like, to have like the loyalty of his own people, just kind of just be like,
I'm out.
I've followed you to this point. I will follow you no longer. Like, that's a pretty big breaking point to have. And well, I mean, he burnt his fucking daughter alive. So yeah, it's like, wow. I mean, that
was a terrible scene.
The screams, man. Yeah, it's that was fucking rough. But it really is a case of the dominoes falling in a big way, very, very rapidly for Stannis. Like, Melisandre just fucking bails. She's pretty. I mean, he gets routed, obviously, at Winterfell, trying to take Winterfell from the Boltons. But before that, Melisandre, she's like, I'm out of here. I think I've gotten some things wrong. I might have seen some wrong details in the flames. Let me double back and check on that, see what happens on that front. Selyse hangs herself almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
She seems like she definitely...
She hated that girl throughout the entire...
She seems very stoic, and then she breaks, right when, they begin to set her ablaze, and she tries to stop it. But clearly a lot of guilt there. Davos, Stannis very deliberately is like, Davos, you should go north. Don't worry about it, but you should go north, and...
Stannis, I think he would have... I think, not Stannis, Davos. I think Davos would have lost his shit if he witnessed the burning of that little girl. Right.
That's why Stannis sends Davos away.
Right.
Is because he knows that Davos will not let. It's one of those things, like, Stannis knows.
He knows what he's doing is not right.
Like, since the beginning, like, Stannis, I think, has always accepted that, like, he knows that, like, what he's doing is wrong. But he's so committed to his cause that I think he becomes blinded by that, and so he allows.
And he even gives that speech to
characters to manipulate him in this way.
He even gives that speech to Shireen before he puts her on the stake, which is
Shireen of House Baratheon, and you are my daughter.
That's it.
And I will burn you alive now.
Well, he says something along the lines of, a man's destiny, you have to pursue it no matter what it does to himself. It's his destiny to pursue it, or this, that, or the other. I don't know what it was, but it's a really shitty thing to do. And what was another shitty thing to do was to burn Mance Raider.
Yeah.
John puts an arrow in him.
I mean, I feel like Game of Thrones, at its heart, is like a series of questionable decisions made by almost every character. Sometimes, not always questionable, sometimes questionable in the sense of, well, you're not playing the Game of Thrones pretty well, and sometimes just questionable in the sense of, like, it's just probably not the most savvy thing to do right now. It's like,
and it usually,
Stannis needs the strength of the Wildling army, and and Mance, if you want to say, is too proud to bend the knee. He's more committed to his message, than he is to himself surviving. Like, he's more committed to the Wildlings' cause that, like, I'm not going to go bend to some fucking southern king, And then Stannis doesn't seem to the forest for the trees either. In the sense of, like, well, yeah, he's disrespecting my claim to the throne or whatever, but at the same time, this is a very powerful ally I could make.
Right.
Something that, if I played this differently, maybe I'm fucking sitting on the Iron Throne in a season's time or something like that, instead of getting chopped in half next to a tree. It's like...
Shout out to the actor, though, that played Mance. His response to being burned alive was pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
When we're gonna burn you alive. He's like, oh fuck.
Karen Hines.
Ooh, that's a rough way to go. I don't want to fucking get burned alive. That's really shitty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jon Snow does him a mercy, and in a way, by putting an arrow through his heart. It's the
Wall is a hard place, man.
The Wall is a hard place, and I do think that there are many questionable decisions that unfold there. But I wouldn't say Jon's decisions are questionable. I really think that because we as an audience have a broader perspective, we can see the forest for the trees, and I think we can understand why Jon does what he does. And so when his reward for saving the lives of thousands of wildlings is to get knives through his heart. It's really just like at the same time, you can take a step back and you're like, yeah, you can understand why that would not be a politically savvy thing to do in his position. But we were absolutely committed to, I think, the message behind what he did and why he did what he did. And, we see that, hey, there's a big fucking looming threat out here. So, yeah, I think that's a good call, mate. But he got killed. So, I guess, I don't know. Was it a good call? I don't know. I guess not. If you get killed, it's probably not a good call. I think that's probably safe to say. So that's The Wall, hard home, badass fucking battle sequence, crazy shit. Reanimated people, just absolute madness, chaos unfolding north of the Wall. And I guess we can go a little bit further south. We've kind of touched on it already. Stannis going to Winterfell, trying to seize Winterfell to rally the North to his cause so that he can then proceed south to King's Landing. Things do not go well. Things do not go well for him. He gets trapped in the winters, in the snows, and Ramsay Bolton and 20 good men to destroy entire stocks of his food and supplies and horses and stuff like that. I'm not sure how they managed to slip in completely undetected, other than Stannis Baratheon's men are completely incompetent.
They just don't know the North like the Northerners know the North,
Yeah, but I mean, if you have people stationed, like on guard watch, like how does no one notice like multiple fires being set? I feel like the logistics of that don't really check out. Like, I get it. I get that, they're being outmaneuvered because they're not familiar with the land, but I'm like, I don't think that. I say there has to be some incompetence, some level of incompetence on display. Maybe it's just because they're not used to the frozen climate, and so they're just like, fuck this noise. Like, I'm just going to cuddle by the fire and stare at my feet this entire time. And I'm like, was that a horse that just rode past me?
Find the men who let these people in and fucking hang them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's and as questionable decisions as Stannis has made, I don't think he's wrong in that regard. It's just like, how fucking incompetent do you have to be to not notice on multiple occasions, or just, I guess, just the one occasion. But like, 20, at least 20 men, maybe 21 if you include Ramsay. I'm like, I mean, and that's a decent amount of people to wander into a camp and no one to be the wiser. But I think in some ways, I think it's going to be true from my recollection of future seasons. I honestly think you see the writing get a little sloppier the seasons go on. Like, the more they drift away from the source material, it seems like the tightness of Martin's writing kind of gets cast aside in favor of more television, like type writing of just like, again, we know what the end game of this is. We know what we want to happen in the scene. We're not always going to get there in the most tight manner, in a manner that like that totally really like logically makes sense. Like, if you take a step back and I'm like, well, how did this actually happen? Like, we don't see any of Ramsay's infiltration of the camp. It's just implied, and like, fucking fire starts going up in like multiple little huts, and it's just like, well, how does that actually happen? It's like let's think about this, like the Dark Knight Rises. It's a weird comparison to make, but like when Batman has he puts the bat symbol up on the bridge or whatever, and like tells Gordon to light it up, and he like lights it up, and like the fucking bat symbol goes up in flames. I'm like, did he just spend 5 hours drawing a bat thing with like some sort of flammable liquid? Like, does he?
What are the logistics of this?
Did he prepare for this eventuality at some point, like 5 years ago, and he's just like, one day I'm going to put a big fucking bat symbol up somewhere. I got to be ready for this. That's one of those things that's like, you understand it as something that's like a moment, like a cinematic moment. And, when shit pops off and in Stannis' camps, and you're like, oh God, his stock is getting decimated. And, it's just like, okay, like, we see what consequence that's obviously going to have, but it's just like, I don't. How does that work? How does that work again? You know. So I it's one of those things I just kind of find somewhat questionable. I feel like the writing in this season is sloppy at oftentimes.
Right.
And I think that's one instance of it. It's like, I'm not going to call it a plot hole because it's certainly conceivable, but it's just like the writers were too lazy to actually go in to explain why it is. So they just hand wave it with Stannis just being like, hang everyone because they're all fucking idiots. And I'm like, I mean, that very well could be the case. And I'm going to have to assume that's the case because otherwise there's no logical explanation for this. But it's a thing. It's a little thing. But yeah, Stannis gets fucked. Brienne of Tarth cuts him down, gets her
vengeance.
After he gets routed by the Bolton army at Winterfell. I mean, Stannis really fucked it. He really fucked it. He was on the cusp of greatness, and I guess Tyrion in a way fucked it for him at Blackwater, when that first popped off, but I feel like pretty much since Blackwater, like Stannis's moves have not. He's not been the most expedient in terms of trying to establish his claim. Like he's really just been kind of bumbling around, and it finally kind of reached a head at this point and led to his death. So I mean, I might have been on Team Stannis at one point in my life, but
like season 1.
Season 2 probably. I guess
season 2 he burnt the fucking shadow demon and killed his brother.
Yeah,
that's pretty shitty, Stannis. You kill your own fucking brother. You just need to take a ship over there and get your brother in fucking line.
But I was 100% rooting for Stannis to win at Blackwater. Personally, I would have been okay with him routing Joffrey and putting a fucking sword through Joffrey's mouth at that point. That would have been changed the landscape in a pretty major way. Probably would mean the death of Tyrion Lannister and some other characters there, and that would obviously it'd be a very different fucking series. Let's put it that way. But I pretty much after that point, like Stannis he was on a downhill slope, and he came crashing down
pretty hard
in season 5, and so that's the end.
The
of,
big Winterfell
Stannis
story,
Baratheon.
though. The big
Winterfell story is
Sansa and Theon, or not Theon, but Sansa.
Well, sort of, but
Sansa and Ramsay.
That's right. Yeah, that's Peter Baelish in his infinite wisdom decides to marry Sansa to Ramsay Bolton, and I guess somewhat of an attempt to make her, the wardeness of the North. Is
try to meld
the eventuality
East in the to meld the East and the
which of no, Littlefinger. Maybe he does. I think he certainly obviously had affections for Cat, and maybe some of that extends to Sansa. He certainly seems to eyeball her in a certain sort of way sometimes. But the thing is, I'm not sure if it's entirely clear. I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't know if Ramsay's exploits are like really well known. Like, I don't know that Littlefinger has knowledge of the fact that Ramsay is like a sadistic motherfucker. Yeah, like I don't think he knows that. I don't think that. I mean, obviously he's playing the Game of Thrones for himself, and that it's advantageous for me to forge an alliance with Sansa to install her into a position of power now that I've secured my position of power at the Eyrie, and that is kind of his way to make waves. And he's kind of pitting some other pieces of the realm against each other, so that he's just going to set himself up obviously in the best position possible. But
yeah, I feel like he's planting Sansa to take control of Winterfell, to exact her revenge on.
I think that's obviously his plan. Is he's not expecting Sansa to encounter what she does encounter.
Rape and shit. Yeah, it's fucked up.
So that's what I was talking about earlier. Questionable writing at best.
The rape.
Yeah, it serves no purpose in this, I think. And I'm not going to say that like it's any more mean-spirited or any more cruel than things we've already seen in Game of Thrones. Like, Game of Thrones is notorious for terrible things happening to what we might otherwise consider good people. That's kind of the name of the game in some ways. Is
the brutality of it all.
Is that you have to know how to navigate this world. But I feel like Sansa, up until this point, she's naive for much of the early seasons, and
she is not
her
naive
experiences.
now.
Her experiences in King's Landing really inform her character at this point. That she has a pretty good head on her shoulders. She knows how things work. She knows how to play the game. And I feel like to put her in this position where she's completely powerless because of her subservience first to Littlefinger and then her subservience to Ramsay, I really feel like it kind of defeats the purpose of what we've been building with her character. In the same way that like they decided to piss all over Jaime's character last season, I felt like they did that with Sansa here. And I just, like I said, I'm not going to criticize it for the sake of horrible things happening to characters that I think don't deserve it, because I think that goes without saying. I just don't think that it serves any meaningful purpose in terms of the writing, in terms of the through lines. Like Sansa's already been through so much shit. Like what I don't see what adding this extra trauma does for her character in any way. I don't see what it does for Ramsay as a character. We know he's a sadistic prick. This adds nothing of value to his character. We know that he's tortured Theon / Reek, and Reek, being witness to the nightly rapes. I don't know that does anything for his character. I mean, I guess you could say that it spurns him into action by the conclusion of the season, but you didn't need any of that. You didn't need any of that to, like, you could reach the same end point with none of that. And it's just a bizarre decision, because it's like, I guess
Well,
I don't want to encourage.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate, because I don't 100% disagree with you. But what I would say is Theon's brotherly love to Sansa spurs him into action. From what he's, because at this point he dismisses his actual blood sister, right? Which he doesn't really know her. He dismisses her, tells her to go away, right? Whenever she tries to save him, and then now he has to witness who he actually feels is his sister being raped by the guy that's mutilated him, right? And it kind of spurs him into action by the end of the season. Your argument is that it doesn't. You don't need that in order to get that same sort of action from him. Another thing is too, though, Sansa has largely, with the one exception to her lying to the people of the Vale, she hasn't taken a lot of actual personal action against her captors either. You know what I mean? She's kind of gone with the flow. She escaped Joffrey, right? She ran away with that guy because somebody wanted to take her, and so she ran with him. She took that opportunity. She's been opportunistic. Is that the word? She fled with Littlefinger, so now she's in the Vale. Now she has to lie. So she actively lied with Littlefinger just because she knows what he's up to. She feels like she knows what he's up to. And she'd prefer that to people that she doesn't know. Littlefinger calls her out on that. And now she has the opportunity to go home, and she's a captor there too. I mean, she's captive, she's been captive ever since season 1, really. And it isn't until she's been physically violated that I feel like she becomes callous to the point where she's not scared to take action now. She'll actively run away. She'll actively do this. She'll actively do that. And then in later seasons, I think that evolution's more evident. But I don't know.
I appreciate your effort and trying to play devil's advocate, but using rape as a motivating factor for Theon is bad offensive writing at its very core. Using it for Sansa is lazy writing, and it's also offensive.
I would agree with that.
I think for the same reasons, and so I would posit that you don't need that. It's a crutch that the writers use to spur both of these characters into action, and I think that's true.
And spur the audience as well.
You don't need it, though.
You don't need it. I'm not saying you need
it.
But it does.
What does it do other than frustrate the viewer even further? Like it tells you again. It informs nothing new for any of these characters.
I would
other
agree.
than
I tried to posit. I tried to be devil's advocate.
It's bad writing. It really is just bad writing. That it's in service of nothing, and I think that's what's frustrating about it. You know, it's not the mere act of physical violence that's perpetrated against Sansa. We've seen that happen before. She hasn't been raped. She's been almost raped, but she's been beaten. She's been brutalized multiple times before. True. I'm not going to say that rises to the level of being raped.
For sure. Yeah, but she's been mentally raped.
You know, it's just, it doesn't need to be there. It's an invention for the show, which is bizarre. You know, it's not something that's taken from the novels. Ramsay does marry someone who he believes or is told is Arya in the novels, and he does, you know, do horrible things to that person, and Theon, he forces Theon to do horrible things to that person as well. And it's like I see why.
Does he really? I didn't know that was evident in the books.
Well, I see how it came into the story. It's not like they just totally concocted, but they took this character.
What's he forced Theon to do in the books?
I think he forces Theon to quote unquote warm her up, and I think he forces Theon to do sexual things to Jane Poole, who is not really in the show at all, but she's basically kind of being portrayed as Arya Stark at this point in time. I understand why they tried to get away from that. You know, they're like, why would we bother to introduce a character that we've had, like, I think showed up in the pilot for like 5 seconds and do anything with that? And so they substituted Sansa into the storyline, but then they still retained elements of the book version of the storyline, and I just felt like slapping those two things together just didn't really work, and it's quickly abandoned. And like D&D, Benioff and Weiss have basically said, like, well, they've said absolutely nothing. Like, they've never attempted to explain why they did that. And like they've been questioned multiple times, and people are like, what the fuck is this? And they've just completely dodged the question entirely. So it's kind of just like, it almost feels like they knew they fucked up, and they're not willing to own
writing.
it.
I tried to be devil's advocate, but I mean, like I said before, before I even tried to be devil's advocate, I don't disagree with you at all.
I just don't think there's a reason for it. You know, it's. I mean, rape as a concept obviously is a. That's a you know, you're
it's a heavy subject, man. It's heavy.
It's a heavy subject to wade into, you know, and to willingly put yourself in there. I think you need to explore it with the right amount of grace. You know,
need to Wind River it. Wind River was a
right. Like you need to give it the appropriate amount of depth, the appropriate amount of circumstance to make it work in service of your story, if that's what you're trying to do. And maybe that's what they tried to do, but they fucking failed miserably at it.
And you need to have the follow through, right?
Yes.
Like you need to encapsulate the entire thing. You just can't have one without the other. So no, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. That is the big story coming out of Winterfell, though. Sansa
That's true.
is now married to Ramsay Bolton, who is the most sadistic motherfucker in the North.
Yeah. I mean, that's more or less it. I have Brienne of Tarth on the list. I mean, she kind of just loiters for most of the season. She does avenge Renly, which is good. And
her position's interesting as well. She respects the space of Sansa for a long time. You don't get into the time. It's never quite clear how long these characters are where they are, but they're presumably there for a while. I mean, because the trek north to the Wall is, do we know how far of a trek that is? That's days, right? Days, months. It's leagues away, I think is the way they say it in the books.
From where to where?
From Winterfell to the Wall.
Yes, I think it's a good haul.
It's a good haul.
It's yeah.
And at that time, I mean,
hundreds of miles at the very least.
Hundreds of miles back and forth, and Brienne of Tarth is still there. Because she's there before Ramsay goes north to sabotage what's-his-face's army, and then he's back.
Is Brienne ever at the Wall?
She's never at the Wall, no. She's waiting outside of Winterfell.
Yeah.
She's waiting outside of Winterfell for a long time. Because, I mean, at that point, you have the entire army marching south of the Wall. She's there.
Okay, from the time from Stannis to come from the Wall down south is what you're saying. That whole period of time, she's just kind of
there
chilling.
for a couple of episodes. She's there for a good amount of
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So
that's absolutely right.
Yeah, so she respects Sansa's wish to stay, but her and Podrick just fucking staple up in the north until she finally requests their help because they know she knows, and it speaks volumes of Brienne's loyalty and what it is to be a knight, even though she's not a knight, which is disappointing. So yeah.
Well, do you wanna take a trip elsewhere? Do you wanna take a trip to Dorne? You wanna go to the southeast region of Westeros and jump around the map a little bit here?
We can do it.
All right. Well, I mostly say it because I feel like we got to get Dorne out of the way. Because, in my honest opinion, this is the worst segment of Game of Thrones in all of its 5 seasons to this point.
Okay. I would say this is what I would say about their adventure to Dorne. It could have been really fucking cool.
Dude, yeah,
it could have been really fucking cool. I would argue one of the coolest characters.
Pitch someone on the fact that fucking Jaime Lannister and Sir Bronn of the Blackwater are going on a fucking bro trip to
espionage
Dorne.
mission, right?
That sounds like the coolest shit ever, and goddamn it, it's the lamest shit ever. It is bad. It's so bad. It's fucking waste of time. It's so bad, and the like they're gonna encounter Oberyn's daughters, who are seeking vengeance, in retaliation against the Lannisters, and it's just the worst possible execution across the board.
It is.
It's just. This is what I was talking about. I think this is the closest to bad that Game of Thrones has ever gotten, and I think it does occasionally slip into to moments of badness. I think
this is what
the
I
Sand
would
Snakes
say.
in particular are just the worst. But
I enjoyed the Sand Snakes.
The worst.
This is my opinion. My opinion is I am just thoroughly let down. Like I think one of the coolest characters from Game of Thrones. You go to his home and nothing. It's just one note. It's not a very fun experience. The Sand Snakes are cool because they're badass. I feel like they're a little bit badass. You don't think they're badass?
No, did you see that fucking fight sequence in episode 6? What the fuck was that? The choreography in that was piss poor.
It wasn't
just
as
the
it
fucking
wasn't.
worst.
It should have been much cooler considering their father was.
I read that there were
spearsman.
filming restrictions on the location where they were, and so I think they were very time constrained to get what they could filmed. But they should have aborted at some point this whole storyline. It's not good, and it has.
They shouldn't have boarded it. They should have just gone about it completely different. There should have been a lot more attention.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's one of those things. Like, obviously, at some point, they were too far gone. They were too far into it to just be like, well, we should probably start with square one on all of this. But yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no reason this couldn't have been the best part of the story. This could have easily been the highlight of the fucking season.
Could have been totally fucking awesome. The Sand Snakes could have been.
Instead, it's the low light.
Cool.
It is, and I think it's absolutely in the writing and the execution of it. And I think that it's just piss poor across the board. None of the writing's interesting. Like, you think Jaime and Bronn, like, that's your season 5 pairing that's going to be the best.
Yeah, that would be really
Wasted.
fucking cool. Yeah.
Totally wasted. I mean, they have fun interactions together. I'm not going to say that they don't, but
it's not as good as it could have been.
There's nothing consequential for either. They're characters that we didn't already know about them. And their interactions, they have some fun one-liners and some fun dialogue and stuff, but like, I mean, I think the only thing that worked in Dorne in its entirety was the last scene between Jaime and Myrcella. I think that's maybe the one thing I think I would take away of. I thought that was a really good scene. Other than that, I have nothing but mean things to say about Dorne, and so that's why I wanted to get it out of the way, because I feel I'm lukewarm on other things in the season, but this is easily the one that I'm the least in favor of, and like, Dorne could have been just so fucking cool. Sand Snakes should be badasses. They were written as badasses, and we got Colleen Wing, and and we all like Colleen Wing and stuff, but it's rough. The execution of it is just.
I did enjoy that interaction between I don't know who it was, but it was Bronn and one of the Sand Snakes in the jail. I thought that
Bad pussy.
No, not that one. That one was totally okay. That was a whatever. But the interaction when they're both in jail and she poisons him. He's already poisoned or whatever, and she makes him like he's poisoned out, and she gets him excited so that poison starts going through his veins. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that's bad pussy.
Well, bad pussy was when he was sailing. He was fixing to hop on the boat.
No, but that's the same character.
It is.
That's her name.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
That's her name is Bad Pussy.
Is it really?
No, her name's Tyene. But
okay, I was gonna say what? No, it's not. No way.
Oh God, Dorn just sucks. I don't have nice things to say about Dorn. I don't have anything to say about Dorn other than what I've already said. It's just bad execution across the board. What interesting concepts, again, Sand Snakes seem like they could be cool. Bringing Ilaria Sand. What happens with her after Oberyn gets fucking his head crushed by the mountain? Like, she wants vengeance, and we meet Doran Martell, we meet Trystane Martell. We got Ariel Hota, fucking big badass dude with an axe that does nothing with it the entire season. It's just like, man, like, and like that guy doesn't do
anything ever.
No, nothing there. I think we were talking about it somewhat before we started recording. Is like they went to these like really cool fucking filming locations to do Dorne, in Spain, and it's just like they really could have done a whole lot, but it almost seems like maybe the choices that they made in terms of location restricted their ability to do anything super interesting with it.
Bullshit. No way.
It did though, because they couldn't fucking film a proper fight scene because they had restrictions on what they could do.
Motherfucker, you take pictures of that shit and green screen it or whatever the fuck you need to do. You can make cool shit, put some stunt doubles in there, whatever. You could film all sorts of cool shit wherever you want to film it. I completely disagree.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think there's a reason that
you think there was a reason to
that particular thing up. Well, I think the Spanish government was like, "Hey, you're not allowed to do certain things here." And I'm like, if you have those many restrictions that you can't fucking do the thing properly, don't do it. I would say, like, if you want to do like external shots there and then do soundstage work for the rest of it,
whatever.
I think that would be totally fine.
Ways to fucking go about
there's
it.
ways to mask the fact that you're not filming on location. But if you're filming on location and you can't actually properly film on location, then fucking do it.
Well, it's just lazy. That's what it is. It's laziness. Just like the laziness of the writing, it's laziness in the fact that they couldn't execute what they quote unquote wanted to do.
I think visually that they made it a pretty interesting setting.
Oh, it was a very interesting. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful setting.
But they didn't do anything with it.
Didn't do anything with it. No, it's this
is nothing.
It's the most disappointing storyline in Game of Thrones. I don't necessarily know if it's. I don't necessarily want to go. I mean, I guess it could be.
To this point, I think it's absolutely the worst. I can't think of anything that's worse than the entire series through season 5.
Now that I'm sitting here thinking, I can't think of a worse.
Like, you can have your reservations about certain things here and there, but
I can't say
there is very little good things to be found. I point to the Jaime Marcella interaction at the very end, and her death, kind of that point. But the moments leading up to that, where
why wouldn't you sail that fucking boat around? Why wouldn't you turn around and say, "Listen, this motherfucker, somebody here fucking poisoned your fucking bride"?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
why would you not do that? Because she got poisoned like fucking 100 foot off the dock.
The fact that you're telling me that tells me that they don't do that, which maybe that's a bit of a spoiler in and of itself. But
I mean, you see her fucking fall down, and then they pan back out to the shot of the boat sailing away. Stupid.
I mean, boats can still turn around at any point, just so you're aware.
It doesn't fucking happen, and it's stupid. I will say that.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's Dorne. Like I said, I kind of wanted to
It's frustrating for the both of us, trust me.
Just knock it off, because I think it's squandered potential. It's something that really could have been interesting, really could have been a fun excursion, and it just ended up being fucking nothing. And in terms of things, in Game of Thrones, it's really, I think, the first of its kind that really feels like it fell flat on its face, in terms of the execution overall. So let's move on. Let's move on to where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? We got a few places left to explore. Want to go to Bravos?
Yeah, I really like Bravos.
The House of Black and White.
I would say that Arya Stark,
home of the Faceless Men.
Yeah, Or I think Arya Stark has don't get me wrong, Hardhome is cool. That's probably the coolest moment. That's probably the episode to say that's the coolest episode, but I think Arya's arc is super interesting. I really enjoy the Faceless Men, as basic as it is, just because I found the Faceless Men interesting. Does that make sense?
I think that's again probably for me the saving grace is that the thing here is more inherently interesting, but I find the execution again to just be nothing.
It's boring. It is boring.
There's just nothing that happens for most of the season.
No, it's a very boring thing. You have her getting
like
slapped.
Arya gets a little bit of play at the end with Maren fucking Trent, and that was kind of exciting. But for the most part, it's really just like Arya sweeping and like cleaning dead bodies for like episodes upon episodes, and you're just like,
she gives that one person the water. I mean, like it's just like I said,
I remember like when fucking Jaqen Hagar shows back up, I'm just like, oh, this is it. This is gonna be the fucking shit.
But
man.
he doesn't do anything.
He's just like a girl must clean the body. A girl. It's like, okay, all right, I get it. And the waif is like kind of just a fucking nothing character as well. The waif.
Who's the waif?
The girl that
bitch?
she's always like, she's not fucking ready, motherfucker. Like that's the waif. Like that's her whole character is just like, she's not ready. I'm like, yeah, she's not fucking ready. She's been there for like 2 days.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say. It's just personal. My opinion on this is probably very biased, but I always found the Faceless Men.
I think the lore is much more interesting than what we see on screen.
It's very true. That's true.
It seems like, I mean, I don't know exactly how you make it interesting to see Arya go through what she goes through in her understanding of what, the Faceless Men are all about. It's kind of, obviously Arya's patience gets tried in the same way that our patience gets tried. And I suppose there's some sort of, connection there, but there's a difference between there's a way, and I'm not going to claim to know the way, but there's a way to make a storyline that accomplishes that also entertaining to watch.
Just like
I think Game of Thrones has done that for 4 seasons up until this point.
Proper assassin training would be pretty fucking cool. I mean, let's just be honest. She's joining the fucking Assassin's Guild and
they make it fucking Hitman, where she goes on missions and shit like that, puts on a Faceless Man's mask, and and we do kind of see that, the oysters, clams, and cockles.
I mean, it's not explicitly clear, like, hey, listen, there's this vial for this guy,
Right. It's just like a girl must visit the Thin Man. Okay, she's okay. All right, fine. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I do think that the scene with Maren Trant was pretty fucking brutal. I will say that. I think
it was
the first
super
thought
brutal
on that,
and it's
and well deserved, because Maren Trant has been a continual shit as many characters in Game of Thrones are wont to be.
His shittiness is
elevated. They're like, we already know that he likes to beat girls on the commands of kings, but as it turns out, he just likes to beat little girls, and
he beats Arya, and she doesn't whimper, she doesn't do anything. She fucking takes it.
I guess I've got my work cut out with you, girl.
Or whatever the fuck he says.
You leave, and she fucking gouges out his fucking eyes and cuts his throat and fucking stabs him in the chest. Oh my god!
And it's like the writers wanted to reinforce that, like, remember Maren Trant? Remember when he beat Sansa that one bike? Like, he totally loves that sort of thing. And it's another thing where it's just like, okay,
sloppy.
Do we need that? Like, it really just feels like in your face, like obvious writing of lazy writing. A lot of lazy writing of just like, look how evil this guy is, and and stuff like that. Like, Arya doesn't need that extra layer of motivation.
He's already on the fucking list.
The audience shouldn't need that layer of motivation. Like, put the fucking thing with him being Sansa and the previously on Game of Thrones thing and call it a day. It probably was there, honestly. I don't usually watch that, but I just kind of felt like, again, just on the nose, too on the nose.
It was pretty on the nose. I would agree. 100%.
Subtlety apparently has had its day as far as the season 5 writers are concerned. It's not. I mean, it's a good moment for Arya to. I mean, obviously we see that Arya is not quite no one. You know, she's still very much Arya Stark. You know, and as much as she wants to get away from Westeros, she is in Braavos. She is literally across the continent, and I guess it's not that far, to be fair. But in
many ways, though, she's playing it. Kind of drives home the sense of playing the Game of Thrones, right? Like she's essentially playing these people. She's infiltrated this assassins group. She's trying to learn their ways and everything else, but at the same time, she's hidden her sword. She didn't throw away her sword. She's very much who she is, even though she's trying to learn the ways of this group that can make her stronger to possibly get her to her end goals. You know what I mean? So I think she's playing her own Game of Thrones. She's just playing an organization is what it is, I think. So I don't know. I really like Arya, and I like her arc, and I find the lore there
there's
super
definitely no
interesting.
disputing that. I just, it's a lot of nothing for most of the season. But we do get Mace Tyrell busting out a nice song in Braavos. Do you recall that moment?
Yeah, that's fucking stupid.
I feel like I'm impressed with how they managed to cast the dopiest looking guy to play Mace Tyrell. I feel like they really nailed the casting.
He's completely clueless, just bumbling around. It's interesting though that his wife is like the most cunning.
It would be my honor, Your Grace.
You want to send me to fucking Braavos? Yes.
Bravos. Oh. Ooh.
He's the most biggest fucking bumbling idiot ever. His wife is the most cunning fucking old lady ever. Yeah, huh? That's his mom?
Yeah.
Oh, that's his mom? I always thought it was her husband. Fuck. Okay. Well, her son's a fucking bumbling idiot. And it's fucking hilarious. Every time he's on the fucking camera, it's great.
It's interesting that you have Lady Olenna Tyrell, and then you have fucking Mace as her offspring, and it's just like, he must have got genes from dad. I don't know what happened there.
Is that Marjorie's dad?
It's Marjorie's dad, that's right. Marjorie and Loras' dad.
It skips a generation.
Somewhat, yeah, maybe.
Ooh, yeah. Anyways, so that's Braavos. There's not a lot to tell in Braavos.
That's Braavos, that's right. Let's go to Marine with Queen Daenerys Targaryen.
You gonna finish it?
And I don't know, Queen of the First Men, the Rhoynar, the Andals, and Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea. Okay.
All right.
Something like that. Somewhere around there.
Your fandom is clear.
She's done a few things. She's doing some things in this season.
Is
she? She rides a dragon out of a fighting pit at one point. She does that.
So she does open the fighting pits.
This is really, it's Dany. It's showing you like, okay, Dany's assumed control of Marine. She's assumed control of Slaver's Bay. What now? That's the question, I think.
She's a well, I don't want to say conquistador because that's not right, but she's she can
conqueror.
Conquest.
Probably
conqueror, right? She's a conqueror. But does a conqueror necessarily mean a keen ruler? And so she's struggling to rule, although she conquered. So you conquered and you dismissed the current systems, and just like Westeros is struggling with the power vacuum with the death of Tywin, you have Dany struggling with the power vacuum that she's created, right? So now you have the sons of the Harpy. Herpes?
Harpy. Probably. I mean, some of them might have herpes. I don't know. They spend some time in brothels here and there, but it's no way to know. I don't think they have testing for that sort of thing in Westeros or in Marine for that matter. The sons of the herpes. They're doing some things, certainly.
And there's a lot of brutal shit that happens there. You got the guy trying to take a fucking nap with the prostitute lady. He just wants to fucking sleep. He can't have sex or anything. He just wants to fucking sleep and be told it's okay, and that bitch slices his throat, which is pretty brutal. So So anyways, she's struggling. She's trying to grapple with that, which is, and she doesn't know how to fucking go about it. So she goes to marry that fucking guy, the Weasley.
He's Darzolorek.
Yeah, fucking the Weasley dude. He's a fucking Weasley dude. I don't like.
He's a Weasley dude. Yeah. I don't think anyone likes. She doesn't like that guy. So that's all right. I mean,
she's grappling. She's grasping for straws.
He gets herpied, as we see in the fighting pits.
He does get herpied. I didn't want to make a mistake and talk about that. So
he definitely gets herpied. Well, I mean, we're fully out of the fighting pits by the end of season 5.
I'm just struggling
unless they go back. I don't know.
I blitzed forward a little bit, so I
understand.
Yeah.
So it's good to be cautious.
Yeah. So they go to the fighting pits there, and he gets. For some reason, I seem to remember him being the. I completely forgot the people behind the Sons of the Harpies. For some reason, I thought he was like the one orchestrating it all, and then he got fucked in the end, and I still kind of felt okay about it.
I think as of season 5, we don't really know too much about the nature of the Sons of the Harpy. I'm not sure if that's something that gets explored in season 6. I'm not gonna ask you to answer that. But I had the same thought in my head where I was just like, he feels like he's involved in some way, and then he just gets fucking stabbed. And so I guess he's just a Weasley dude, or if he was involved, then he got betrayed. I guess you could frame it that way too. But I'm not sure.
He's all for the fighting pits.
I'm not sure if it ever gets explained in further detail. But
Jorah
a thought for a future season.
Jorah continues to fuck people up, man.
Participating in the fighting pits.
Yeah, more than once. He fought in the sample fighting pit, and then he fought in the second one. And he grabs that spear and chucks it up there, up into the balcony, which was
pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
It's like a 300 type moment, fucking. Sort of, except he made full contact instead of just scraping the little cheek of King Xerxes.
Yeah, and he hit his target, and
you will pay for your barbarism,
dude. Volantis, we didn't even talk about Volantis. They travel through Volantis and the fucking Stonemen.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I have Jorah and Tyrion. So. This kind of talks about the whole journey that eventually leads to their arrival in Meereen.
Yeah.
So,
to be clear, I think every season I've picked out my favorite pairings, and I think you made calling what could be the coolest pairing. I don't have
definitely wasn't Jaime and Bronn.
No, I don't really have a pairing for this season.
I feel like by default it has to be Jorah and Tyrion. But it's not. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's not. Jon and Tormund. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no pairing in this season, which is pretty lame. A lot of missed opportunity. I feel like because a lot of interesting characters interact.
The characterization really feels like it takes a backseat. Like I get that they're trying to move the plot into a way that it sets up for interesting things in future seasons, but it feels like. None of it is ever in service of stronger characterization for anyone. Like Jon, maybe, but then he's dead, so it's like, okay, well, I guess that was kind of nothing. So it just Stannis is gone, and Sansa, again, we talked about Sansa at length. I don't think we needed to go down that road again. Dany, I guess Dany, maybe. Dany is not in terms of pairings or anything like that, but in terms of Dany, it's like how to be a good ruler. Certainly seems like lessons that could be taken away if she ever sails across the Narrow Sea to eventually try to reclaim the Iron Throne. That's lessons a pretty learned. Key thing that could be useful for her. But I agree, there's not a sort of quintessential pairing that we can talk about that really feels like it's the highlight of the season to like, oh, anytime these two characters are on screen, it's just fucking magnetic. None of that's here. There's none of that in season 5, and it could have been. It really could have been. There was opportunities there. It seemed like they set up characters to do that,
Tyrion
it just didn't happen.
Could have Tyrion and Varys. That could have been cool.
Which was fun, but that was cut off pretty early on, and it was mostly just like, "Hey, dude, you don't have balls,"
or you're a drunk asshole. you know, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's I don't know. But they do go through Volantis, which is not Volantis. They go through is it Volantis? It's not Volantis. Volantis is a slave city.
Old Valyria.
Old Valyria. That's it. Who suffered through the doom.
The stone men.
Yeah. Which we find out that Jorah got touched by a stone man, and he's got the same shit
so he's got the gray scale.
He's got this gray same thing as what's her face's daughter, Shireen. That's right.
So we do know that there's a way to stop it, but Jorah does not, at least as far as season 5 is concerned, doesn't seem to be in any hurry to tell anyone. First of all, that he has grayscale or to do anything about it.
I think that's an interesting concept, that obviously there's a cure to be had, but it's not. Why would
I think...
Go ahead.
Well, because I think when we talked about the moment where Stannis talks to Shireen, he's like, you are my daughter or whatever like that, I feel like he kind of talks about how like people are just like, oh yeah, she's fucking dead, dude. But he's like, I brought in everyone, and they managed to find some solution. So we know that like there is something on the table. I don't remember if they really spell out what that is.
Why would but that girl's like fucking whatever she is, 8 or 10 years old or whatever. I'm not a good gauge of age, but why would that not be like? You feel like everybody would know. Hey, listen, we cured this fucking disease.
Well, I assume it's just a rarity because of like the way that Stannis talked about it. It very much implied that it was like I don't want to say a stroke of luck necessarily, but it wasn't like a known remedy necessarily. It was just kind of just like we threw the kitchen sink and something worked. More than just like
fair enough.
You just got to do this, and problem solved or whatever. Bada bing, bada bang.
So, anyways, what's his face's contracts that fucking scale?
So he's got grayscale, yeah,
which is a pretty big deal.
But Jorah, I think more importantly, I think Jorah is. This is Jorah after he's been exiled by the woman he loves, and Daenerys. This is him trying to regain her favor, and so
relentlessly.
He's desperate. He is fucking desperate. And so he sees Tyrion. And seizes what he thinks could be an opportunity to regain that favor by presenting her with a gift. And
Tyrion sticks his neck out for him multiple times. Maybe not multiple times,
yeah.
But yeah, he wants to travel with Jorah, which is I think that's interesting. Hey, you're taking Jorah, take me too. It's like a symbiotic relationship, if you will. And I think that's interesting. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't.
You look puzzled by my symbiotic relationship comment.
I don't really. He's. Well, I think Tyrion knows that the moment he's left alone, he's going to get killed. I think that's mostly him just fighting for survival.
But then
I
at
guess.
the same time, Jorah feels like that's his ticket to success with Dany.
Well, yeah, I guess so, in the sense that like Jorah wants to bring Tyrion to Dany.
They need each
other. Tyrion was just like, yeah, I was going there anyway, you dingus. So I think that's maybe that's kind of what you're saying is they
need each other.
They want to be in the same spot, and obviously it's more advantageous for Tyrion to have Jorah with him, I think, than it is for Jorah to have Tyrion with him. Well, I guess that's not true. I guess in the sense that like that is the one thing that he can present to Dany to even give. Okay, yeah, I take it back. You're right. I see what you're saying. Symbiotic. Symbiotic, I believe, is the Sony pronunciation of that word.
Yeah, so he goes over there and tries to win her favor, and he's rebuked once again. I don't want you.
But then he's not to be dissuaded.
So he comes back in the main thing, and he throws that spear, and he escorts her to safety.
He does, yeah. Jorah, I think
not necessarily to safety. The dragon escorts her to safety.
Well, yeah. Drogon does a bit of the heavy lifting there, but I think that it puts Jorah in a position that he's kind of, like Dany at the end of the season is kind of just in the middle of fuck all nowhere, presumably, and
there's Jorah to save her.
She gets surrounded by a Khalasar of some sort. So I guess we don't really know exactly where that's going, So Danny's in an uncertain position, to say the least. I guess I'm not really sure if her former. I mean, I think she still claims the title of Khaleesi, but I'm not sure if that holds any water amongst the Dothraki.
Do you want to know?
I don't. Well, I'll find out soon. We will all find out soon, within a couple of weeks' time. But
she gets captured by a lot of them, which I find it hard to believe that where she ends up, you can't hear all those fucking horses riding around in that area.
Maybe she thought there was an earthquake.
Maybe she did, because
or she's deaf.
When she gets captured by those people, by the Khalasar, goddamn, there's fucking hundreds of thousands of those people riding horses.
There's a lot of them. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of baffling. It's like, hey, listen, I'm gonna hop on my fucking dragon. I know you're a lazy motherfucker. You don't want to move, but I'm gonna hop on top of you so I don't get confronted by all these people riding horses. But I digress. It's almost like Stannis' army. Don't ask questions.
I guess. Yeah. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's a TV show. What are you gonna do? But yeah. So Dany's in a precarious spot at the end of season 5. We don't know what's going to happen with her up against the Dothraki again. It's been a few seasons since she's been part of that culture.
But it's worth talking about Tyrion, though. But Tyrion's in a spot of power again.
Yeah, assuming things work out favorably with Dany, then yes. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He's vaulted himself from being in a crate for sailing across the narrow sea, hanging out with Varys for a bit, then hanging out with Jorah for a bit, and then volleying himself into what seems to be favor with Dany as an advisor to her. Now that, I mean, obviously, from Dany's position, it's just like, okay, it's Tyrion Lannister, fucking member of the house that I hate. His brother fucking killed my father and basically set off Robert's Rebellion, or basically sealed the deal, I guess, on Robert's Rebellion in a way. I guess not. I guess probably the Trident did that with Robert and Rhaegar, but
it does take an extent of trust, though, which is interesting. It plays a.
But it puts Dany in an interesting position where I think that, if Dany truly was like the Mad King, if she was like Aerys Targaryen, then she would probably just fucking kill Tyrion right away. She's like, that's a Lannister, fucking kill him.
If she was like everybody else everywhere else, right?
And I think it shows depth to Dany's character to have a realization of, okay, there is value in having someone that perhaps is well suited to Westerosi schemes and Westerosi politicking and stuff like that. So the fact that I think Dany recognizes value in Tyrion, and Tyrion likes to drink wine a lot and stuff like that, but I think that Tyrion starts to turn a corner a bit himself and see that, okay, maybe it's not just blowing smoke about Dany being potentially a good ruler, the rightful queen of Westeros or something like that. So it's interesting. It is good to see Tyrion vaulted into perhaps a position of power, again, assuming things work out with Dany. We do know that Jorah and Daario Naharis 2.0 are mounting a rescue mission while Tyrion fucking rules Meereen and Dany's stead, alongside I guess Missandei and Grey Worm and such, with the Unsullied kind of keeping the peace as much as possible, I guess. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess just even I guess even now that I think about it, even putting Dany aside, Tyrion's fucking ruling a city, so he's done that before. So maybe
he's not even ruling a city. You got to think she's conquered other cities before that.
It ain't King's Landing or Westeros, but it's
he's ruling Slaver's Bay essentially.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I got to say, we got to pour one out for Barristan Selmy.
God fuck, dude.
Because I don't understand sometimes the decisions the writers make. I guess I've probably echoed that sentiment multiple times on this episode, but like, why? This is one of the greatest swordsmen in the entire fucking world, and he gets clowned in like 5 seconds by the Sons of the Harpies. I'm like,
he did kick ass
fucking lame
there for a little bit, but then he did get fucked up. Yeah.
Who the fuck are the Sons of the Harpy? Like, are these? I mean, presumably they're relatively untrained.
Well, they're just a bunch of numbers. Is what I gather from it.
I guess, but
uncoordinated numbers is what it is.
I don't understand why they make decisions like Barristan Selmy alive and well as of the end of Dance with Dragons. So it's just like, why? What's the purpose there? Like, why are you killing off one of your core characters? And someone that
I completely agree
is a very interesting person to have in Dany's camp. Like, what purpose does it serve other than to just make her sad and then have her never be mentioned for like the remaining 5 episodes? Like, Jorah wanders up like, hey, where's Barristan? Never addressed. Maybe it's addressed in season 6. I don't know, but like, it's kind of just like that seems like a kind of a weird thing to not acknowledge. But
no, you're totally right. I agree with it 100%.
I don't know. I guess, I don't know. Maybe they didn't like the actor. I don't know. I know he was pissed. He's like, what the fuck? And I would feel the same way. I was like, the fuck? Like, even George R. R. Martin hasn't fucking killed me, but these fucking guys did? Like,
right? Yeah, I don't know. I completely agree.
So, that's
you did get some good sword play, and you feel like he was just overwhelmed by numbers. And
Grey Worm gets fucked up a bit, but he's still hanging around. So,
stupid.
He'll probably recover.
I agree. It's stupid.
To say.
I would have liked to see an excellent a proper sword fight 1-on-1 where he just gets. I don't know.
Like if you're gonna kill Barristan Selmy, do it in a way that feels earned.
Right. Don't make him overwhelmed by a bunch of like. I mean, he killed off a ton of people, but then he just got overwhelmed by a bunch of
killed by herpes,
goobers.
Man.
Yeah, got killed
fucking
by herpes. Herpes. The fuck.
Herpes. Barristan Selmy killed by herpes. Unacceptable.
God damn it! It's a shame. So I feel like it's a shame as kind of the
shame. Shame. Was that the transition you were trying to make? I don't think it was, but
yeah, that's good. Shame is the feeling of the season, in which we can transition to King's Landing. Shame. I forgot we hadn't talked about King's Landing yet.
Well, I think that's the last place to visit for this season, King's Landing. Some things are happening down there. Queen Regent Cersei, and the ineffective King Tommen, first of his name, of the House Baratheon.
The Queen Regent fucking captured and held captive by the very powers that she put into play. Grasping for straws.
I don't know the exact dialogue, but every time like Cersei would talk to Tywin in previous seasons, she's just like, I'm so much smarter than all the other Lannisters, and Tywin's like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, that's kind of the bottom line. And I really feel like we see that drawn true, where like Cersei thinks she's the smartest motherfucker in the room, and lo and behold, she might be the dumbest motherfucker in the room.
Yeah, like, let's put the what are they called, the militant,
the faith militant. That's right. Yeah.
Let's put the faith militant back in charge. Okay, so you can capture your betrothed, your son's betrothed bride, and you can try to recapture the throne, and they end up capturing her, which is.
Yeah, worked out real well for you there, didn't it, dipshit?
That's what I'm saying. You can see the and that's what I was alluding to in the beginning. There is that you can see the consequences of the actions, which is interesting. That guy's he's a snaky motherfucker. That guy,
the High Sparrow.
The High Sparrow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, King's Landing. I mean, the re-implementation of the Faith Militant, I mean, it marks a pretty radical shift where King Tommen, he's a sweet boy and whatever, he gets married to Queen Marjorie, Queen Bey, I believe, as you call her.
Queen
sometimes.
Bey? Yeah, Queen Bey.
Seems like, this is what the realm, I don't want to say the realm necessarily needs after fucking Joffrey, but having someone like Tommen on the throne really seems like a nice welcome to change. And obviously he's
just too soft.
Tywin was busy, basically like shaping him into who he wanted him to be so that he could rule the Iron Throne and such. But now that he's out of the picture, it's like, okay, now it's Cersei versus Marjorie jockeying for power. And well,
We're gonna give the power to the Faith Militant.
Well, I mean, it's Marjorie using her qualities to win over Tommen.
The Bay-like qualities, yes.
The Bay-like qualities to win over Tommen, and Cersei can't quite use those same qualities to win over Tommen in exactly that same manner. She's obviously not opposed to certain levels of incest, but perhaps that rises to a level that even Cersei's not comfortable with.
Bay-like qualities, yes, they always prevail.
So that really founds Cersei's decision, a very short-sighted decision, as obviously we see, to retaliate. She sees Marjorie seizing power for herself. Because
she quickly pushes the power to these radicals, and those radicals,
and for a time it does work out pretty well for her. Queen, I guess Loras is the first to get put into chains for his homosexuality, and then eventually that leads to Marjorie also getting imprisoned by defending her brother's honor, basically. And then it backfires in the most spectacular fashion when I guess Olenna, I assume, kind of basically loops the High Sparrow into maybe that. Maybe Cersei and one Lancel Lannister had a bit of a thing for a bit of time there or something like that. So it's like, and by the way, Lancel,
God, what a stupid name.
Just had to throw it in there for old time's sake.
Ultimate betrayal.
Yeah. So Cersei finds herself in chains, and
But see, the thing is Tommen's just so soft,
and Tommen doesn't know what the fuck to do. He's too young and too ill-equipped for this situation, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's too sweet a boy. I think he doesn't have any sort of edge to him anyway. Like Joffrey would not have put up with it. Joffrey would have executed the Faith Militant on the spot. I think, like
Absolutely.
Even when he tried to walk up the steps, and like for all the things you can say about Joffrey, that actually might not have been the worst decision in the world to do at that point.
Right.
But
the Faith Militant has essentially usurped power from the throne, and it's put them in a precarious predicament. It's precarious predicament. Look at that. You can hire me, Westeros Wiki or whatever it is, to write your shit. Anyways,
we like the alliteration on Watch Review Repeat. It's somewhat there with the R's, but yeah.
Anyways, so it put him in a very precarious predicament. Because, like I said, the Faith Militant who is...
I have to say something. If you're going to boast about your linguistic skills, are you saying predicament? Are you making up a word right now?
Predicament?
It sounds like you're saying dicker, like there's a dicker in the middle of it. Predicament? Ament? Predicament?
Predicament.
At first, I thought you were taking the piss on your pronunciation, but then I was like, oh no, he's just said it like 5 times now. I should probably. I mean. It's not the first time you've mispronounced a word. I've certainly mispronounced things myself too. In all fairness, but
we just have fun. I'm a couple beers in, couple sips of wine in.
Well, I was like, oh no, he just thinks that's how the word's said. Oh no.
I don't have the linguistic. To be clear, I do not have the linguistic skills of the people that wrote the synopsises. Or the synopses.
But they're very talented. That's true.
Of the
nonetheless.
Anyways, they're in a situation. I will say
a precarious predicament. I mean, that's totally fine. I just think.
Yeah. I didn't want to gamble around that word anymore.
You don't want to fuck it up again.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, we got it there.
Yeah. So, yeah, they completely usurped power from someone who thought they were totally in control, who put them in control, which is interesting. So she just handed the power over on a silver platter. And
I mean, maybe this is a cynical take. Maybe you agree with it. Maybe you disagree with it. For their so-called commitment to justice and whatever. really. I mean, it's a power grab. It's absolutely a power grab under the guise of religion. That's...
he calls it out. He says the people that am I getting into season 2? If I get into season 6 territory, you just got to cut me out. But he calls it out, and he says
cut your mic.
He calls it out in such a way that the many become the powerful once they realize that they have the power.
No, I think that's season 5. It's when he's talking to Lady Olenna Toriel.
Maybe.
I think.
I don't know. I don't know where the Sparrow called it out, but I mean, he flat out says that, once we realize that the people that have been getting stepped on by your actions and stuff, once they realize they have the power to make change, that's when you don't matter. And that, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not wrong about it. But it's operating under the guise of religion, which is interesting, and he totally got it. And you have a king that just doesn't say, "I'm going to shut this shit down. You no longer have power," or just doesn't march in there with a fucking army and execute everybody. And sorry, I know my wife's under your fucking imprisonment, but I'm just going to shut this shit down, which is what should be done.
I feel like, I mean, if Cersei had the power to restore, the faith militant, shouldn't the king by royal decree just be like, nah, JK lol? Or,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Because
I'm sure there's probably an explanation for that. I just don't know what it is.
She's the queen regent, and she gets called out on that multiple times. You have no power at the small table or whatever the fuck it is. You have no power here. We don't view you as a piece of we don't view you as a person of power. You have no power here, right? So what power does she have to put those people in power?
I don't know.
None, right? It's interesting. Maybe it falls back to lazy writing, but I feel like it's a major story arc that's
I think it could just be as simple of like the small council, and just being like, hey, like much like Tywin, we recognize that you're not nearly as smart as you think you are, and.
Yeah,
so
I kind of feel
we're not gonna trust your
though.
Expertise. I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm giving them too much credit. So yeah, I agree. I'm not gonna go that
because
far,
I mean, all it takes is her saying the king didn't recognize my recognition of your power, so you don't have any power over me.
At which point, it's not. I don't think the faith militant would just be like, "Oh, all right, we're just going to go back to the things."
Yeah,
where,
but at the same time, you just march in there and execute a bunch of shit.
But it would build to a head,
right.
And that would be a conflict, that would need resolution.
So,
that could resolve in favor of just putting everyone in chains, and now the faith militant still have power or something like that. But it's just kind of, I don't know, it's fine. It is what it is. It is what it is.
It's
it kind of, I think if nothing else, it does accomplish something interesting in that it brings Cersei to a low in a way that we've never seen before with Cersei.
That's right.
With her Walk of Atonement.
She has to play them in such a way to where I atone for my sins. I did this, I did that. She didn't mention Jaime, which is she got away with that.
She outright denies that.
Right. Which is, she just got away with Lancel. So I don't know.
God's what a stupid name.
Yeah, I agree. It's a stupid fucking name. But I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, really though, who named him? Some halfwit with a stutter?
Oh, Lancel
Lannister.
It's nice to see Lancel grow into a proper role. That's cool. So where he's putting her in a fucking precarious position. Precarious position? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are words. Those are words pronounced correctly.
Good. So do we have anything else to say about this season? You got the guy that turned into the mountain turned into a zombie.
Yeah, we see a version of Gregor that's taken a vow of silence until the queen's enemies are silenced or something.
Looks like his
that.
head's stuffed into that fucking helmet.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about, but
he looks a bit fucked up. I think we can say that. Yeah, I think that's probably more or less it. Really, it's Cersei. It's interesting to see her at this point. I think it's interesting to see Cersei again brought to this low point, and what does that mean? Does Cersei go on the warpath from this point on, or Cersei's not the type to roll over? I guess I'll say that. So I'm of course I know what's going to happen. I've seen it before, but I think it's interesting to see, Cersei now at this point, vulnerable in a way that we've never seen before. I guess Marjorie and Loras are still in chains. So what becomes of the House Tyrell? So there's a lot of pieces on the board. Again, I think to kind of reiterate what I talked about earlier. To I don't know what happens now. I guess that's where season 6 comes in. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I have for season 5. So
what's your favorite episode, Homie?
We can proceed. My favorite episode is Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, episode 6. It's the one where the Sand Snakes fight Jaime and Bronn and Dorne, and it's one where Sansa has her wedding. No, it's not. It's not that episode at all. That's actually, I would go as far as to say that's the worst episode of Game of Thrones through season 1 through 5, and I would say probably, to my recollection, the best of my recollection, and assuming that the 6 episodes in season 8 do not prove otherwise, it's going to be the worst episode of all time for Game of Thrones for me.
Okay.
But that's not the question. I realize that's not the question. My favorite episode's Hardhome. I think it's definitely the best. It does a good job of, that's Dany and Tyrion, kind of great interactions between them. A little stuff with Arya and a little stuff with Cersei, and a little bit of stuff with Sansa and Theon. But it's all about the fucking, mission north of the Wall to save as many wildlings as possible, and then the confrontation that unfolds at that point. It's fucking brutal. It's things really just go ham in a big way, and it really does a great job of illustrating what the real threat is in this world. Like and to see the Night King wield such amazing power, it sets the stakes high for the wars to come. And so I pick Hardhome because it's in a season, I think, of mostly ineffective episodes and ineffective writing. It's one of the few where the spectacle carries it, but even past the spectacle, there's still enough outside of it that works too. And so it's kind of the perfect combination of the things you'd want to see in a Game of Thrones episode. So I pick Hardhome. What about you?
I agree.
Yeah.
For all the same reasons. I tell you what I'm more interested to hear is after the season, who's your favorite? Who won the season for the house and the individual?
Who won the season? All right, well, we'll start with the house. I struggled actually with both of these, as it turns out, because there's, as is the case with Game of Thrones, in typical Game of Thrones fashion, there's a lot of characters that through episodes 1 through 9 seem like things are going pretty swell, and then, well, lo and behold, they get stabbed by their brothers of the Night's Watch, and so Jon Snow probably can't be the individual that wins the season because he's dead. It's probably fair, and so that's kind of where I'm at with some of these decisions, just kind of like they're right on the cusp of greatness, and then not. In terms of the house, I'll give you 2 answers. I'll give you one answer that's cheating and one that's not. I think my preferred answer, and one that I realize is not actually factually accurate in terms of house, would be the Faith Militant.
Okay.
And so I acknowledge that that's not really answering the question head on.
It's a governing power for sure.
But I think more, House Lannister has issues. House Stark has issues. Dany's having perhaps some issues, or things aren't going swimmingly in Meereen, and I feel like most of the major Baratheon, I feel like that's kind of my reaction to most of the houses, is like things are not going well. Things are not going well for the most part, and so I feel like the one group of people, if you had to put it as, I guess, a group of people that really has escaped the season 5 low blows is the fucking Faith Militant. They've been given power, and by golly, they're exercising that power with full force, to the point that they've got Loras Tyrell in chains. They've got the Queen, fucking Marjorie Tyrell, in chains. They've got the Queen Regent. She's not in chains anymore. She's back in the Red Keep now. But she went through this humiliating walk of atonement, and so it's like things are looking pretty good for the Faith Militant right now. It was dumbassery that brought them into power, but they took advantage. I'll give you my other answer as well. My probably, if I had to do a proper house, I don't love this answer because, again, I struggle with it. I'll go with House Bolton as my house winner. Okay, that's fair. Because I think in spite of Sansa and Theon jumping off a very large tower at the end, I guess hopefully the snow's deep. Otherwise, they're dead. I think that just even by virtue of the whole sort of marriage alliance with Stark, that's a pretty favorable thing to have happen for the Boltons for the most part in terms of securing their positions in the North. And obviously that doesn't totally work out by the end. But I think at the same time, like, the Boltons are still in a position of power. Like, even with that, I don't think that's totally fatal to their cause. And they rout Stannis. 20 good men, burn out all his stocks and slip passes incompetent guards, and they fucking destroyed Stannis. Not even like that result was never in doubt. So I feel like the Boltons have really lost no ground. They sort of gained ground, and maybe they're kind of back where they started by the beginning of the season, but they really have not been brought low at any point. So I give it to House Bolton if I have to give you the more proper non-cheating version of my answer. What do you have for House? We'll do individual afterward.
So for House, I think House Baelish. Okay. He's playing the Game of Thrones. He's playing it his way. He's got kind of various machinations in motion. Yeah. So House Baelish has secured the East, and he thinks he planted a secure seed in the North. And we'll see what follows.
You could even say that he's making his own justice in the world.
That's right. So we can see what happens with him. He's not in this sort of power that the Faith Militant is, but at the same time, he is a legitimate house. Kind of. Yeah. No, he's got fucking control of the Eyrie. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah. So. I struggled with it as well. I never thought of the Faith Militant. The Faith Militant really has it fucking going on right now. They are obviously the clear owner of power in King's Landing. But Baelish, I feel like Baelish has significantly more a force behind him at the end of the season. So I don't know. But my individual winner is Ramsay Bolton. Okay. What do you got on that front? What thoughts have you? Ramsay Bolton has he has secured himself the bride of the Starks. So presumably the alliances will follow behind him. He's been put in a position of power. And I think I struggled with the individual rankings as well. So that's what I picked. I don't know. He's a piece of shit person. So hopefully we see him falter. But I think, I don't know. Yeah. I think he's probably the, who'd you pick? I struggle with individual. My first inclination was towards Jorah, actually, and I kind of thought about it, and I was like, that's not quite appropriate. He spends most of it kind of fighting an uphill battle, and he really hasn't achieved reconciliation with Dany just yet. Plus, he's got grayscale, which is a pretty shit thing to have. So I was like, not Jorah. And so my runner-up actually was Ramsay. I picked Ramsay as my runner-up because,
position of power. Things are still pretty swell for the Boltons, even despite the fact that, presumably Sansa and Theon have now run off to where, who knows where. But I went for a bit of more of a dark horse pick, and I picked Sir Alistair Thorne as my individual winner. You
picked Sir Alistair Thorne as your winner?
I think he wins the season because he's had to grit his teeth, I think, for the entire season and watch, Jon win the position of Lord Commander, and then he finds the time to enact his scheme of revenge. And presumably, I mean, who the fuck else is going to lead Castle Black at this point, And so it's short-sighted in terms of the overall scheme, like Castle Black under the leadership of Sir Alistair Thorne is going to get absolutely fucked in the ass, without a second thought from the White Walkers and company, because the Wildlings sure as shit ain't going to fight for him. But at the same time, on an individual like power grab level,
it was a pretty good power grab, I guess.
He's probably now in position to be Lord Commander. I mean, he was First Ranger, so he's pretty much going to be right there. So I think short-sighted move, not going to be something that works out for him in the long run when the long night comes, when winter comes, for real. But I think that in terms of individuals making moves, or you could pick the High Sparrow. The High Sparrow is kind of the same thing of just
it's true.
Following the same thought process of someone making a clear power grab and seizing the moment. I think in the interest of diversity, I'm not going to pick the High Sparrow because I already kind of talked about the Faith Militant, but I really think that you could go that route. So I think there's so many characters that are brought low by the end of the season that or they have kind of some sort of fatal flaw that kind of undermines like their own particular individual success. So I kind of look at it as like, at the end of the day, where are they standing? And Jon Snow is dead. So that's a bad place to be. Alistair Thorne is standing. He's now in a position to seize power at Castle Black, which whatever that power means, it means a lot to him. So I mean that has individual merit from that standpoint, I would say. So that's I struggled though. I think you could pick. There's certain picks I think that could work in place of that, and I don't think I'd argue too much with your points on that front. So season rankings.
Mine are going to say all the same, except this last season is the least best. So 3-4-2-1-5 is my
3-4-2-1-5 is what you have. Okay, I am in the same boat of season 5 is easily the worst season so far. So it's at the bottom. I will adhere to obviously my rankings that I had before. So I have it as 4, 3, 1, 2, 5. Purely in terms of season 5, it's the writing's the worst. The execution's the worst. It's a clear step down from anything that came before, and it's disappointing. Maybe not outright bad, encroaches on that sometimes, as we talked about, but hopefully there's nowhere to go but up. Season 6,
that's the hope.
So that is Game of Thrones season 5. I know we still managed to squeeze out 2+ hours of coverage on it, so clearly there was something to be said about it, but or maybe we just spent, much as season 5 did, we spent a lot of time doing nothing, talking about nothing, accomplishing little of value, but we did it anyway, so there it is. And that's it. That's for Game of Thrones, I think, for this episode. So thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. If you would like to support us on Patreon and gain access to future bonus episodes, such as our Season 6 and Season 7 bonus episodes of Game of Thrones coming within the next month or so, roughly speaking, just head to our website, watchreviewrepeat.com, click the premium tab in the top left, and then click the Become a Patron button. $2 a month gets you access to those bonus episodes, along with early access to all of our regular episodes, of which, as of recording this, there isn't a whole lot on that front coming up, so that's maybe not the best selling point, but certainly by the time this goes up on the regular feed, Avengers Endgame might have already been released. We might have already talked about that. I'm not sure what the timeline exactly is going to be, but May is going to be a busy month, so there's value there. There will be value there at some point, if nothing else. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at WRRPod. Like us on Facebook at Watch Review Repeat. Questions, comments, suggestions, anything Game of Thrones related, anything related for the most part. You can send that our way at watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Our intro and outro track, Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Next bonus episode, you might have guessed, and you probably guessed correctly. It's going to be on Game of Thrones Season 6, baby. We're going into uncharted territory. We're going past the books, going into pure sort of fan fiction-y type stuff with Benioff and Weiss, heading the ship. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, theoretically, there's nowhere to go but up. Is that going to be true or not? We'll see. We'll see. I know Andrew's watched a bit of it. I have to get cracking myself, but we'll be talking about it before long. So we hope you guys will tune in when we do that. Until then, we will catch you later. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful life in the interim. A wonderful life in the interim, and we'll catch you next time.
Adios.
Laters on the Menjay.